This video is about finding the centroid of a triangle. The centroid is where the medians intersect. Reminder that a median is from the midpoint to the opposite vertex. So I've drawn in two medians here, midpoint, opposite vertex, midpoint, opposite vertex. I only needed to do two because I can already see where they intersect, and all three intersect at the same point. As you can see, this centroid is not exactly on a point. So we are going to find that point algebraically. To do that, we find the equation of each of those medians and set them equal to each other. To find the equation of our first median, we're going to find the midpoint. I'm starting with this pink median here, so the midpoint of AC. In order to find the midpoint, you average the x's and average the y's, so I added my two x's together, divide by 2, and I got 1. Add the two y's together, divide by 2, I got 1 again. Then we're going to find the slope between the midpoint that you just found and the opposite vertex. The midpoint I just found was 1, 1, and my opposite vertex is -3, -2. To find the slope, you subtract the y's over subtract the x's. So I got 1 minus -2 over 1 minus -3. Remember that minus a negative means plus a positive, so this is really 1 plus 2, which is 3, over 1 plus 3, which is 4. So my slope is 3/4. Then you're going to plug that slope that you just found and the opposite vertex into point slope. So y minus the y of the opposite vertex equals the slope, 3/4, times x minus the x of the opposite vertex, which was -3. In order to change it into slope-intercept, we're going to distribute the 3/4. So again, minus a negative means plus, so that's really y plus 2, and that's really x plus 3. So y plus 2 equals 3/4 x plus 3/4 times 3 is 9/4, because you just do the 3 times the 3, leave it over 4. Get y by itself by subtracting by 2. Didn't decide here because I'm playing with fractions, so we have 9/4 minus 2 over 1. We want it to be the same denominator, so I changed it to 9/4 over 8/4, and 9 minus 8 is 1, so it's 1/4. You now have the equation of your first median. Now you are going to repeat those steps to find the median of the other side. So we are going to find the midpoint. That's again average the x's, average the y's. So I have -3 plus 3 divided by 2, I get 0. -2 plus 0 divided by 2, I get -1. So my midpoint is 0, -1. I'm going to find the slope between that midpoint I just found and its opposite vertex. The midpoint was 0, -1. The opposite vertex was -1, 2. So I'm going to subtract my y's over subtract my x's, so I get -1 minus 2 over 0 minus -1 minus negative really means plus, so 0 plus 1. 1 minus -2 is -3. 0 plus 1 is 1, but I don't have to write that as over 1, that's very elementary, so I'm just going to leave it as -3. Now we're going to plug in that slope that you just found and the opposite vertex into point slope. So y minus the y of the opposite vertex equals the slope, which is -3, times x minus the x of the opposite vertex. Distribute, so we have y minus 2 equals -3x. That is really plus 1, so -3 times positive 1 is -3. Add 2 to get y by itself, and we get y equals -3x minus 1. Now that you have both equations, you are going to set them equal to each other. So we have 3/4 x plus 1/4 equals -3x minus 1. We're going to solve for x, so we're going to get all of our x's on the same side. I added 3x, so we have 3/4 plus 3 over 1. We want the same denominator, so 3/4 plus 12/4 gives us 15/4 x plus 1/4 equals -1. 1x all by itself, so subtract 1/4. So we have -1 over 1 minus 1/4. We want the denominators to be the same, so -4/4 minus 1/4 gives us -5/4. So we have 15 over 4x equals -5/4. In order to get rid of this 15 over 4, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Reciprocal is 4/15. Do that on both sides. And I didn't really need to do an aside here because I'm not adding or subtracting fractions, but I really wanted to show that when you do the negative 5 over 4 and 4 over 15, those 4's cancel out. So you're left with negative 5 over 15, and that reduces to negative 1/3. Now you're going to plug in that x you just found in order to find the y, and you can plug it into either one of these original equations. I chose my y equals negative 3x minus 1 because it didn't have fractions and it looked a lot easier. So y equals negative 3, our x was negative 1/3 minus 1. Negative and negative is a positive. 3 times a third is 1, so positive 1 minus 1, positive 1 minus 1 equals 0. So our centroid is negative 1/3, 0, which matches our graph, finding the centroid.